Hey, it's Soul with part 2 of the really big Q&A that I've been building up over the past couple of weeks. It was a lot of fun answering all these questions. In fact, so much fun that I just ran my mouth too much. So this is part 2 of the Q&A, and yeah, so let's just get right to it. Mark Frellup asks, every story has loose threads, sometimes by design. From the games to Chronicles, what are some threads that you hope they delve into in the coming expansion? And perhaps going into it a bit deeper, would it fit into the typical raid dungeon situation, or could you see some stories being explored in, say, Warfronts or other formats? Ooh, that's a loaded question. I'm probably gonna cut this in half, or, I'm probably gonna do a number of takes so I can do the whole thing. I'm totally counting on there being some sort of interaction between all three Windrunner sisters, probably in the Before the Storm book that's going to come out in a couple months. But if we don't see anything there, I definitely want to see something like that visited in this upcoming expansion, because at least at the moment, from the data mine information and what we know so far, we haven't seen or heard from Verisa at all. So it makes me speculate whether or not she's going to even survive the Battle for Darkshore or the Battle for Lordaeron, or if there's some sort of other event that removes her from the story, or is she just going to be like, oh, well, me and the Silver Covenant, we're just going to do our own thing here and hang out in Dalaran and like stay there. If that were the case, then that would further my belief that nope, High Elves are never going to be a thing, because their best chance of a leader, a Windrunner sister, doesn't give a damn about just helping their race thrive. They're just, it feels like if Verisa isn't being utilized in this story either, she's just there along for the ride. She is definitely like she's the little sister that everyone just forgot about, and that would be a very big shame. There are so many other small threads that I'd like to see, but I guess in the context of the Battle for Azeroth, I really would like to see a lot more prominence from all the faction leaders. There's so many that we just haven't really seen or heard from at all. Like, Tyrande had such a small part in the expansion, she didn't really do a damn thing. You didn't see Gallywix, you didn't see much of Mechatork. I would just like to see a lot more of the faction leaders in the front lines, interacting, quest lines, development. Maybe not death, I think that would be taking it a little bit far, but this is an expansion that is first and foremost about the Horde and Alliance conflict, and so I would expect the leadership to put their foot forward, or, put their better foot forward and step it up and show us what they've got. Excuse me, like Bane has this new model. I expect that to be used. Saurfang has a new model. I expect that to be used too, along with like everyone else who is participating who previously didn't have a very big part in much of anything. So as for it going a bit deeper as to whether it fit into the typical raid dungeon situation, or if I would see stories being explored in Warfronts or another format, I wouldn't mind seeing the faction leaders participating in Warfronts. I think that would be pretty damn awesome to see the faction leaders represent themselves, and yeah, sure, they'll be like killable, or that we can defeat them in a Warfront, but I think it would be awesome to see them, like I said, in the front lines, actually fighting them instead of trying to gank them in their capital cities. Alright, moving on. Lucas asks, Ask Soul question, TM. Seeing as how there hasn't been any word regarding a better guild finder tool, and Blizzard instead putting a lot of its eggs in the communities basket, what is your short list of your most wanted features for it, announced or wishful thinking? One is that I want them to do something about this convoluted mess of having communities and like BattleNet groups, and okay, I guess those two things, communities and BattleNet groups, because I think it's going to make things confusing for players a little bit. I know that BattleNet communities, it's a little bit more of what we would want in terms of a cross-faction, cross-game sort of thing that lets you interact with whoever is in that particular group. But that and that is supposed to be something that we can use in-game with a community tool. So I think that's going to be potentially effective. It feels like the community tool overall, when it comes to the in-game sort of agency, it feels like that's going to be a lot better because, excuse me, because you're going to have the whole in-game interaction. You'll be able to invite people right away into a group, I believe. So the way that I see either of those, I see it as like a possible group finder. It's like a curated group finder environment with regards to communities. The small problem that the big weakness that I think that has is that it is faction specific. So you wouldn't be able to bug anyone else who happens to be on a different character. And at the same time, the communities tool, it does feel kind of awkward because you have this tool that lets you speak with people for voice chats and everything, but when you're switching characters, I have a feeling that the communities tool isn't exactly running in the background, that communities doesn't run on the Battle.net client itself. It's just the Battle.net client stuff. I know this is confusing already because I'm trying to wrangle this all together in one coherent thought, and I'm failing to do so. But like when you're switching characters, I don't think voice chat will follow over the same way. But as for my wish list, I would want this to be searchable. I want it to be very, very searchable in such a way that I would be able to make it so that people can find me. I want to make it easy. I want to make it so that if people are looking for a community that is all about casual gaming and raiding and learning and lower level Mythic Plus, I want to have like the toggles and the tools that allow me to do that. And also, I want to be able to advertise in the same way. I doubt that this whole community thing is going to be as like extensive as like Google in terms of, hey, based on your searches, this is a community that might be great for you. I doubt that there's going to be anything expansive like that. But if it was possible for me to find people, and invite people into my community, I think that would be cool, but I don't think it would be, I don't know, I'm a little wary about that. So I guess off the top of my head, if there was a way for players to click on some box that says, hey, I'm interested in finding new communities based on some of this criteria, and that way, whenever they happen to open their community tool, they might see, hey, here's a featured community that you might like based on those toggles that you hit. Here's a highly upvoted community, because apparently you can upvote communities and give them likes and stuff. I think that would be cool. Again, it's just a way for me to be able to promote myself as a community leader, to find the right people. Just as, you know, because I think that is just as important as letting people be able to find the community that they want to join. Clayman Butoh asks, what race from World of Warcraft would you be in real life if you couldn't pick human, and why? Probably a blood elf, because, or a void elf, you know, because same difference pretty much. Just, do I want lighter hair, or no, they're pretty much the same thing anyway. Yeah, I would pick some elf race because, well, they look human. That's really the long and short of it. I know I'd be pissed as all hell having long ass ears and eyebrows that penetrate like all form of clothing. That I wouldn't like very much. So if I had to choose like a third place, God, what would I choose as a third place? Probably, damn. I guess I'm cheating here. I'm totally cheating. I'd choose a Worgen because Worgens can look like humans. No, but that's not fair either. Let's choose something else. I don't think I'd want to be blood elf. Or, I'm sorry, I don't think I want to be a night elf. I'm not fond. I like blue, but I don't like being blue. Maybe a dwarf. Maybe a dwarf. They seem fun, you know? They seem to like always have a good time with whatever they're doing. So I think that would be a pretty viable race to choose. Yeah, as for everyone else, they would kind of scare me. I don't know if I want to be as small as a gnome or a goblin. I don't think I want to be a like a tauren or an orc. Yeah, I would just stick with those races. Zac Brownian asks, what's your favorite current allied race, or favorite potential allied race? I've loved your videos, just started recently, but I'm enjoying them. This video is hilarious. Love it. Thank you. My current favorite allied race is probably probably Lightforge Draenei, because I'm not too, I think Draenei are cool, and they have the best dance out of like any race right now. They've got like the coolest dance. So I think they win. I do like Zandalari trolls. I think they look awesome. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Lightforge Draenei for right now. Cormac Bevins asks, is Bob's name an acronym for anything? Well, it's actually an abbreviation of my full name, Bob O. Bob. The Bob in Bob O. Bob is also an acronym, and that stands for Bob O. Bob. I think you're done. Oh, man. Nathanial Conrad asks, question, as Blizzard is a for-profit corporation, as in they don't make games for free, what is the probability that we will see allied races in the WoW store? Do you think the WoW store generates much revenue for Blizz, and would a race, I don't know, like the Volpera, be a smart move for profit, or would it be seen as an insult by the players? Just like any polarizing thing that Blizzard decides to do, it would be both. It would be smart. I think it would be smart. They would make tons of money, and players would be pissed off as all hell because they had to pay money for it. The way I see it, though, I guess from a business-minded standpoint, I don't think they need to have allied races in the store, because because you think about a race, how much would a race cost? Like 25, 30 bucks, something like that. You pay for the race, boom. What should you get out of that? Should you get should they be like max level? Should they be like a boosted level? What do they get out of it? Or do they get anything out of it? Because then people would be really pissed, because then you would double dip. It's like, oh my god, I'm paying to unlock this allied race, and I'm paying for it to be like max level because I don't want to deal with the leveling. Ugh, this is terrible. Or yeah, along those lines, that would piss a lot of people off. I think that making them an allied race, it would be smart, but it's not required. It's not needed at all. Okay, so maybe it's not smart. They don't need to do it. All they have to do is unlock it, make them playable, and then just kind of let players naturally decide what they want to do. They would either play the game, which means that players are playing the game, which is a good thing, or they would pay for character services to boost them because people have that option to do so. And if people decide to do that, who can they really blame anyone, or can they really blame Blizzard because they don't have the time to do it? I mean, I guess the debate there would be, what level should these newer allied races be when they're introduced? Like, I would make the argument that certain allied races, depending on who they are, maybe they shouldn't start at 20. Maybe they should start at 60, 80, 100 something or other, because when you think about it, I would think that the allied races, I would think that all of them would have started at like 80 or something like that. So the time of Cataclysm, because you have the High Mountain Tauren and the Nightborn, for example, participating in the fight in Ashenvale when they're trying to fight, and when the Horde are trying to fight off the Alliance and try to expand and all that stuff. So they're existing in a timeline. They're existing in a timeline that's no longer really a thing. So it's weird. So maybe not level 80, maybe like 85. So if they all played starting at like Pandaria stuff, cool. But I don't know. I guess really there's no winning because of the timeline. But at the very least, I think they should take a good long look at when is it these new allied races should be, what starting level should these new allied races have. Theron Sand asks, as a tank, would you rather have the new way threat works, or would you like to see a return of how tanks had to be mindful of their threat, and in some cases work at maintaining it? That's a good question. I don't really like the way threat is right now, because right now threat isn't a thing that exists for anyone except for tanks. and it exists for tanks. And what I mean by that is I pull a boss, I engaged, I throw my whatever it is that I throw for threats, and then I'm good. I pretty much don't ever have to worry about an instance where someone will pull threat off of me. The exception would be the other tank. So if there's an engaging tank swap and fight, for the most part, as long as we're like on top, as long as we're at of a relatively even item level, we're okay. We're not going to really have an instance where one tank is going to pull threat off of another. It becomes a big issue when there is an imbalance between the gear level and, I guess, to another extent, the skill level of the tanks, who might not be utilizing that 3-second window to maximize their threat to get a significant boost ahead on threat over the other tank. Otherwise problems occur. As for bringing back the threat of losing threat to, like, let's say a Bloodlust or an overzealous arcane mage or something like that, that's not something that I would be looking all that forward to. But I wouldn't mind a form of skittish to come back, where if I'm not engaged with whatever I'm fighting at all, like not producing any threat, then there is in fact a pretty good chance that the DPS will be able to overcome that. Because right now that doesn't happen. Like if I pull threat, I could effectively just auto attack, throw down consecrate, and not have to worry about ever losing threat at all. And I think that's a bit too far in that direction. I just wouldn't mind if there was an instance where if I'm not actively engaged with a mob, then that threat can decay somehow. So maybe that's maybe not exactly how skittish works, but something similar to where I just need to at least stay engaged. The design of that is pretty hard, though, as we've seen over the years, where either there are too many instances where DPS need to effectively hold back during critical phases where they would rather be burning the boss, or it's how it is right now, where the threat is all but trivial. It's not a big deal for almost anyone at all. So it's hard, but I would like to see it go somewhere in the middle. Where it's not that big of a, where you're not in total danger of DPS pulling off of you, but you can't just fall asleep either. Lisa Cypers, or is it Kuipers? I'll go with Cypers. She asks, "Hey Soul, I know you usually try to go for a more positive spin or outlook in all things WoW related, but my question is, are there any particular things that you don't like about WoW and would like to see changed? How would you change them? Just a couple things, doesn't have to be major or controversial." I don't like, and I'm probably going to talk about this in some future video, I don't like that quest markers are on the map. I know that previous to how we see things are right now, where we get a quest and then we just kind of get like a big area, go there and do the thing. Before we had that, we had things like Carbonite and TomTom. I mean, I think they're still around, but we had things that directed us where to go. And that's an add-on thing, so that's whatever players decide to do about it. But having it built in-game feels like kind of a turn-off. To me, that takes away from some of that adventure feeling of having to just find stuff. And I know that there are counter-arguments that it's like, to me, this is the silliest argument that people use, that they just do this in a way to make, Blizzard is just doing this to make you play for longer and to have increased playtime and that sort of thing. To me, that's the silliest argument that people come up with, because I could easily make counter examples that it's like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. But I don't want to get into that. But just sticking to quest, that's one thing that I don't like, because one, it takes away from that feeling of discovery, and two, sometimes those things are wrong anyway. It's like, I'm trying to go in this direction, it's kind of off, and so it kind of leads me in the wrong way anyway, and that I don't like so much. I think I would like it better if instead there was just quest text that told you where to go, and in the outdoor world there were more points of references, markers, things like that that would be like a quest would tell me, yeah, go northeast, go take that road, hit a left at the sign. There's a monument or there's a statue or some sort of landmark, and you're gonna find what you need there. I think I would like that more. And then I guess on top of that, it would be the like how quest objectives have like an outline or a glow around them. That's kind of a turn off too. I think it'd be better if that sort of thing didn't show up unless you were within like a number of yards to it. Again, to encourage exploration and discovery and getting lost. I think it's perfectly okay to get lost sometimes with whatever you're doing, because right now it just feels like you pick up a quest, you follow the arrow, you're looking at the map more than you're looking at what's actually around you. And when you get to that destination, you're not looking for that scroll. You're looking for the glowy, sparkly thing, and then you click on it, and then you get the item, and then you go back to wherever the arrow takes you. So that would be. I'm just going to talk about that one thing because there's so many more things that I can talk about, but I'll just stick with like quest related stuff. Cool? Cool. Yeah, thanks. Payoles asks, hey Soul, who's your favorite character and what is my favorite non-WoW game? Ooh, that's going to be tough. Who's my favorite character? That one's tough. I think one of my favorite characters is Garrosh. Garrosh Hellscream is, funny enough, one of my favorite characters in WoW. I mean, he's old. I mean, he's original. He was born and raised in the Burning Crusade and progressed into whatever he became to now, and then he got took, right? But as controversial and as haphazard as the handling of Garrosh was, for what it was, it's something that I think is really, really something to appreciate, because here you have this dude with humble and you know, down in the dumps beginnings, and then he progresses into what becomes an extremely proud leader, to the point of bigotry towards these races that he looks down on, because the way that Garrosh sees the other races of the Horde, it's like, this isn't the Horde. This Horde isn't full of, you know, prancy little blood elves and these green little goblin things. It's orcs, the real green, right? And I found that fascinating as we progressed more, you know, further and further along. And to be honest, I think that he went too soon. I think that if the events of the Siege of Orgrimmar happened like further down the line, I would appreciate it a lot more if Garrosh was just around for longer. But that's not how it turned out. I think that there could have been more that he could have done to develop, or to kind of slow burn his descending from just a proud orc to someone who wants to, you know, kill most everyone. Well, I guess he was still proud, but it makes Garrosh as a character very fascinating, unlike so many other characters that feel so surface. And I think now we're starting to see. I think cutting to now, depending on how they picture or depict Sylvanas over the course of this expansion, we might see the same treatment where either she's going to get this, like, we'll be able to look back and see this steady progression of how she grew or fell as a character, or she'll just be like a very transparent and too easy to understand character. I'm evil, I do this, blah blah blah. I'm very motivated and nothing more. That I would find to be boring about Sylvanas. But that's what makes Garrosh cool, is that he had his conflicts, he had his sense of honor, but he also had a very strong sense of pride too, which brought him down. Oh god, there was more. What's my favorite non-WoW game? Oh crap. I think one of my I don't have a favorite, right? give me a chance, okay? I'm not gonna have like a number one favorite, but I think one of my favorite games is Chrono Trigger. It's a Square game, came out for the SNES many moons ago. And one of the reasons why I liked it so much was because of the characters. They developed, they changed, you found twists. You thought the bad guy was a really bad guy, but the bad guy was actually very, so motivated to save one of his family members that he did whatever he could. He did whatever it took in order to get the job done, which meant endangering a lot of people and being a bad guy. The other cool thing, and spoiler alert, even though this is like a, 20-30-year-old game or whatever, is that the hero dies. He died. He just died. And you can complete the rest of the story without bringing him back. You can just keep going. And I thought that was a very, very fascinating way to approach the game, because you feel invested into this character. And this particular character was the type that didn't talk, so you immediately kind of apply yourself into that. That's usually the design whenever you have a character that doesn't talk. It's meant to kind of personify you. So the fact that this character dies I was like, I remember I was, I'm like a little kid. I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy. What happens next? What happens now that the main guy is dead? You keep going. And I thought that alone made it such an enjoyable story for me, gameplay wise. But yeah, there's no way I can answer that question like over Q&A. We all need to like get a bunch of drinks together and just hang out and like talk about all our favorite games and stuff. That would be like a lot of fun. Callum Underwood, who makes this, asks, "Hey Soul, my question. I know my story, which led me to playing a Blood Elf Protection Paladin as my main, which involved a Worgen Balance Druid and an Undead Shadow Priest. But what is your story that led you playing a Blood Elf Protection Paladin? Why is this your main? Why do you prefer this over other classes and specs?" I better drink some water for this one. Once upon a time, I happened across a video. I think it was on YouTube or some other platform. Was YouTube a thing back then? Anyway, watched the video by a guy named Hobbs. He was also a Protection Paladin. This was during the Burning Crusade days. And this guy Hobbs was like, "Hey, I'm going to show you guys how to make some extra gold." And I was like, "Ooh, extra gold. I like that," because at the time I was trying to get, I think, fast flying, something like that, because that cost 5,000 gold. Oh my god, it was crazy back then. So anyway, this guy Hobbs, he goes into this place called Scarlet Monastery, and he's a level 70 character. The other mobs are like levels like 30 something or 40 or something like that, so they couldn't easily kill him. But anyway, this guy, he went all the way to the very end of the dungeon, hit the last boss, because you could go all the way up and hit the last boss, and that results in like this entire cathedral area. Everyone just starts coming after you, so you run all the way to the beginning, to almost the beginning of the dungeon, because you're going to end up mob training more than half the dungeon over. And this guy Hobbs, he just threw down his consecrate, he had his holy shield up and going, and he somehow lived with the help of like items and enchants and other such things. And then he just spent all his time looting. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my god, I could do that. I want to make some money too. So that was my entire motivation for creating a Protection Paladin at all. I wanted to make money, so I did it. I tanked it just like Hobbs did, and I felt really awesome when I finally did it. And in the meantime, people, my guild was like, "Hey, we need help, we need a tank," and I was like, "Okay, I'll tank," and history was made. Royal J Forever asks, question: so just guessing what might go on in WoW in the future expansions and such, what do you think might happen to Azeroth from all the info that we have now, or at least on our own thoughts added into the big melting pot of information? I think that the Horde is going to take over both Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms, and the Alliance is going to retreat to Argus on the Draenei spaceship. But of course, each faction is going to be significantly underpowered, such as like all faction leaders die except for Sylvanas and Anduin. Whoo! I call that headcanon, which is not a bad thing. that's far-fetched, Royal J. What do I think might happen to Azeroth from all the info that we have now? I had a theory. It's in some video somewhere, but I have a theory that going past the Horde and Alliance conflict, even going past the Old God conflict, there's going to be something that there's going to be something that goes on between Alleria and Turalyon, because Alleria and Turalyon, they represent the most primal forces that create the Great Dark Beyond, which is, you know, the light and the void. And I think we're going to see something very, very interesting from those two. We're going to see them fight, or I'm sorry, or at the very least, we're going to see their ideologies fight and have like huge conflict and huge implications for the planet, for the Great Dark, for the Warcraft universe and franchise itself. And I had my own headcanon kind of theory where Turalyon snaps, because if you think about it, think about Turalyon, right? Turalyon is a hero of like the First and the Second War. He went over to the Dark Portal. He wanted to save his people. He wanted to save his world. And then he got sucked up into all sorts of mess with the Army of the Light. And the Army of the Light was like, hey, we need you to fight with us for the sake of your world. So you better do it. And he was like, okay. So he did it for 1,000 years. He somehow held his shit together for 1,000 years. 1,000 years later, he comes back, returns to Azeroth. Only a little bit of time has passed. He sees everyone still fighting each other, and he's like, good God, man. So he helps defeat the Legion with his Lightforged Draenei, comes back, sees a big old sword stabbed in the back of Azeroth, and in the meantime, the Alliance and Horde are going at it even crazier than before, knowing that the world is dying, that the neutral-ish factions of the world are probably trying their best to heal the wound of the world. The champions are trying to do their best to heal the wound of the world. But the Horde and Alliance are not. The greatest two governments on Azeroth are like totally at each other's throats and killing each other over this stuff. And I think at some point Turalion's going to snap. And he's going to be like, screw you guys, screw you Horde. And you know what, Alleria, I'm sorry, but the Alliance has lost their way. They're not doing the right thing. I was put on a mission by the Naru to save this world from the darkness and blah, blah, blah. And you guys suck. So I think that Turalyon might end up being someone that we fight. Not because he's a bad guy, but because he believes that his good is greater than ours. Here I am starting to deteriorate. So I think that players might end up fighting Turalyon or fighting some form of his ideology of, we need to save the world. You got to put an end to the fighting. So I'm going to put an end to this fighting myself. And he might snap and attack both factions. I think it'd be cool. As for how much farther that goes, I have all sorts of crazy theories and stuff, and I don't mind discussing that stuff. But that's kind of that's one thing that I can kind of see happening. It would shock people, and I think it would piss a lot of people off too. But I think now that we have the context of what's been going on with Turalyon for the past 1,000 or so years, I think that if he does snap, it would be easy to sell the idea and that we can understand, even though we don't agree with it, obviously. Ahmed Halabi asks, hey mate, nice video as usual. I have a question for you. As a tank main, I noticed, what do you recommend to play as a tank in Battle for Azeroth? And what criteria do you go through to choose your main character for a new expansion? Cheers. By the way, Ahmed, grats. You also win a WoW token. So I hope the two of you get back to me really quick, and then I'll send you some WoW token awesomeness. It's hard to make a recommendation as to which tank to play. I mean, you could ask me this question regardless of the expansion, and I wouldn't be able to tell you an answer. Partially because of the time frame right now. We just don't have enough of what is a tank. You know, we don't have enough of the toolkit, the available Azerite gear, or any of that to make a strong judgment. But as for the criteria that I choose for a main character in a new expansion, I mean, for me it's hard, I guess, because I already make my choice every time. I'm going to be a protection paladin until I probably die. But as for the criteria that I put myself through anyway, each time I go around, I think about the needs of my group because I'm part of a guild. I GM, I raid lead, so I think about what's needed in the group. Do we need a tank? Yes, we need a tank, so I guess I'm going to be a tank. But as for like which one, things that I guess I'll jump into my co-tank Shattuck's shoes for a second. As for what he chooses, he goes for what best complements the group. So he's been looking at the different kinds of utility and abilities that that he can possibly bring to the table, and then he considers what options, he considers what other factors he has. There isn't a whole lot for him to rely on, except that he knows who his co-tank is. It's me, and I chose a protection paladin with all the buffs and goodness that I'm able to offer. So I believe what he decided on, he was deciding between a warrior and a druid, and I think he decided to bring his warrior because of the buffs that they give and some of the other utility that warriors can provide. So I guess that would be one of the big things. If you happen to be in a set group, then I would talk with your group and figure out, okay, what are they bringing? What are they bringing? So maybe if you happen to be good at all the tanks equally, then you can kind of pick and choose based on what their needs are. Me, I'm selfish though. I go with what's fun for me, and you know, this is just my personal take. So you know, don't take my word for it. But obviously, a protection paladin for me is fun. A warrior tank is not fun. A demon hunter tank is fun. A druid tank is very easy to use, but is not fun. And a monk tank is something that's beyond my knowledge. So I wouldn't even know how to have fun with that thing. And a death knight is fascinating, but it doesn't quite fit my playstyle, which is sword and board. I like having the feeling of holding the shield too. That's my class fantasy. So I would factor those things in. What are the needs of the group? What feels good for you? What fits your fantasy? And then of course there are other things to look out for too, like what are talents going to look like? What are some of these new Azeroth traits that are coming, and so on and so forth. Tits McFloppin asks, that's a sexy name. Are you a girl? Huh? Anyway, I watched the Slootbag interview, and it seems like the devs were super pumped to talk about leveling, and all anyone talks about is Endgame. I guess you're talking about the interviewers. The devs seem frustrated with this. What's your opinion in the soul? In the soul. I guess the hard thing to talk about with Endgame is that I guess the reason why devs are having a hard time talking about Endgame is because they're not done with it. This is me trying to make excuses for them, I guess. So I'll try not to, but then logically that seems to be the case. I mean, like the first focus with any and all of these different bits of alpha and beta testing is that you start off with the leveling. They didn't even have zones finished yet. I mean, can they really talk too much about their end game plans if they don't even have like the zones really up and fleshed out in testing? They can talk about high level things, but that was stuff that they talked about at BlizzCon, like their high level intentions. We're gonna have Azeroth gear. It's gonna have traits. You're gonna level up your Heart of Azeroth to access these traits. There are island things. You'll have adventures. There are war fronts. You're gonna stab stuff. But as for like the details and how all that stuff works out, it's hard to talk about because it's not done, unfortunately. I mean, I guess there are things that they could talk more on that I would like to know a lot more on. I was talking earlier about tell me more about war mode. What other things aside from this bounty system are you gonna have? Will we be able to fly in Kulturas or Zandalar or anywhere? while you're in war mode, or is everyone going to be stuck on the ground in the meantime to help preserve that feeling of PvP and avoid the feeling of just dudes vulturing above you, waiting for you to be in a vulnerable moment and then just come in, gank you, and then fly away? That, I think, isn't a good thing, but I would like to know more on what's going on there. Even if it's just well, I guess here's the drawback, right? If I were to ask that question, if they were to address it at all, it would come with so much controversy. Like, one is if they gave the answer. It's like, oh, you know, we decided to do this. You can't fly. People would be like, oh, well, fuck that. You know, I'm never gonna queue up for a war mode. Then this is gonna be a lot of shit. Or if they said, yes, you can fly. Oh, well, I guess I'm not going to queue up for that, because and then I'm going to get ganked all the time by people that are just flying above me. Or at the very least, they would all stop queuing up for war mode as soon as flight was enabled. You know, it would just be like dead. It would also be bad if they said, we're not ready to talk about it yet. It's like people would be like, well, fuck, that means it could be either or. So people will be talking about both subjects, and that would be bad too. So when it comes to those interviews, giving away too much, and Blizzard has had instances where they gave away too much, is bad. Giving away too little is also bad. There's just no winning with Blizzard when it comes to revealing information and talking about stuff, because a lot of the time when they answer something, their players will hold them to that. They'll be like, well, you said you were going to do this, and the developers might be like, well, we did say that was our plan, but sometimes plans change, and then it feels like a broken promise, and people will take things the wrong way. Like I said, there's just no winning on that. So knowing, I guess if I were a dev and I was being asked those kinds of questions, I don't know if I would feel frustrated, but I would kind of think to myself, like, come on, guys, it kind of goes without saying, we're still doing this early stuff. We're not ready to talk about Endgame. Why are you talking about Endgame? You're wasting time, unfortunately. It's like, I'm trying to remember, during the media event, I think someone during the big Blizzard media event had asked about Classic WoW, which asking Blizzard about it is fine, but asking about it, knowing that the entire context of this media event is about the battle for Azeroth, is rude. It's bad form, and I think a lot of people agreed with me on that when I saw a pretty negative response to that question being asked, because there's a time to ask those kinds of questions, like Classic WoW, like Endgame, but when you are already pretty sure that you're not going to get an answer, maybe it'll appease like your fans to ask, but it's not going to produce anything fruitful, and you probably know that already, unfortunately. Dead and Cold asks, okay, you want a Q&A? Here goes. You didn't seem to care at all about the new battle pets in game, but what about real life? You got any fluffy buddies, a dog, a cat, or maybe reptiles, or more your deal? Anything at all other than Bob, that is. Yes, I did. I had that guy. I don't know if you can see him on cam, can you? Yeah, that guy right there, Toffee. He was he's my boy. And I had to say goodbye to him about almost 5 months ago. So I did. I have my sister's dog that I help take care of. There's my wife's dog. So I have a family of fluffers, so to speak. But that's about it. I mean, as for battle pets, yeah, battle pets unfortunately aren't my thing. I'm not a big pet battler. I don't mind collecting them, but I don't try very hard at all to like fight trainers to collect more or to get achievements and things like that. I do like some of the toys that come out of it, but that's about it. Undercover Gale asks, with as much teamwork as both sides have given each other, would perhaps the ability to unlock the opposite faction for allied races? I mean, hell, even back in BC, we had that dwarf trying to help the Blood Elves. Yeah, he was a traitor, but still. So should we should we be able to cross factions? I almost want to say yeah, sure, why not? Because yeah, I want to say why not, but I think that in order to do that, you would need a third faction. Because I think of unified factions that kind of fight everybody, like the Twilight cultists, the Cult of the Damned, that sort of thing. That encompass numerous races. As for going from one race to another, I don't know. Like, I'm not entirely sold on that because you constantly have people fighting each other anyway. It just, I don't know. Like, it just doesn't feel right, to be perfectly honest. I'm totally stammering this answer out, but it's just hard to imagine a WoW where players could either freely change their faction affiliation, which I know is not what you're really asking, but otherwise to sign up for the other team. Yeah, because a lot of the animosity between the Horde and Alliance is unfortunately quite racist. They're quite racist to one another. So it's more the exception than the rule where you'll find these where you'll find the members of each race fighting each other. Whenever whenever you see them not, it's usually because of a common a common enemy like the Lich King or Deathwing and so on and so forth. But that's always been temporary. The things that have been more permanent would be like those more neutral factions, such as the, oh god, I'm trying to think of that Goblin faction. The Venture Company. They employ folks from all over the place, and it's because they have no faction affiliation at all. That's the only way that I would see there being any neutrality at all, is if there was something else apart from the Horde and Alliance. Jared Unger asks, Soul, are you married? If not, do you want to marry me? I am married, even though I'm not wearing the ring right now because it's hot. It's hot in here right now. But yeah, I am married. Been married to my wife for a little over 2 years now. We celebrated our 2-year anniversary just last month on the 25th, actually. But she and I, we've been together for like over a decade. So, yeah, we're tight, man. You're gonna have to work a lot harder than that if you want to break us up, okay? Umagar asks, hey Soul, long-time watcher, first-time poster. First off, your content is great, and Bob makes it even greater, but how exactly did you come up with the idea for Bob? I don't know. Shit, how did I think of him? I think the name is just, that's just like the default name that I have for like anyone that's fake. Like, oh, let's just call him Bob, whatever. But as for why I thought of him, obviously I do this show alone. I get support from my wife and everything, but when it comes to actually talking about stuff, I wanted to kind of change things up every now and then. Like I'm very all over the place, if you folks haven't noticed. Doing all sorts of different things to just try to find a niche. And I guess my niche is that I do a little bit of everything and I suck at all of it. But when I thought of Bob, I was like, I want someone to play off of when it comes to reporting the news and giving some commentary, or otherwise just kind of lightening the mood. Because yeah, I just want to chill and hang out. And Bob is, the attitude that I give off is overall, positive. I try to be positive. I'm biased and all that, but I try to give a good positive energy. And Bob is kind of the, I don't know if the id is like the word that I should be using, but it's my way of projecting my own self-deprecating sense of humor, because that's kind of how I do my humor, is a little bit of knocking them down a peg and all that. And I have fun. I try to have fun with that. I know that Bob is also like a controversial character too. Not everyone likes him. People have unsubbed over him or refused to watch videos because of him. But there are those such as you who are fans of him, and it's something that kind of took a life of its own after a little while. At first, I thought, fuck, I guess I'm doing this. I think that's like the first thing that I said when I introduced Bob. But he's fun. He's fun to play off of every now and then. For the most part, it's still me. I'm still talking my thing. But whenever I have some like side talk to say, I like projecting it through that little guy, and it's fun. Glenn Muller writes, "Hey Soul, I've been watching your videos for a few months now, and I have to say that I'm impressed with your quality. Your videos are of similar quality in terms of editing with much bigger YouTubers, and I wanted to give you credit as I'm sure you put a ton of work into each video. Keep up the solid work with Bob too. You deserve props for working your jokes with Bob into your videos, as that takes a great level of creativity and work. Anyways, for the question, I was wondering, what is your favorite zone or expansion music since vanilla till now? Ooh, and if you do not listen to the in-game music, what is your go-to music? Keep up the fantastic content, man, and keep spreading positivity in your content." I'm positive. Anyway, Sue, thank you very much for the question. My favorite music. That's a tough one. I would say like at least what's caught my attention recently. I'll just go with that for right now. The kind, I don't even know what the theme is called. Like the Anduin theme, I think is what some people call it. But overall, the Legion theme music with the dun 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 dun, that kind of tune. That tune really gets me. It's one of those tunes that really captures the emotion of it's that whole epic feeling. As for zone music, I don't listen to it too often. I listen to it quite a bit more during the Legion expansion, to be honest. So I would say like the Legion soundtrack has been one of the more memorable that have come to mind, but there are a number of real standout ones. And they're more like classics, if anything. So maybe it doesn't seem all that unique to say, oh, the Invincible soundtrack, that one's awesome. A good chunk of the Wrath of the Lich King stuff, that's awesome too. But yeah, I'd say at least at the moment, the Legion ones really caught my ear. But I'm very impressed with some of the music from the Battle for Azeroth thus far. I think once we get a good sample of the different music that's being offered in all the zones, because right now it's not there isn't zone music in all the zones in Battle for Azeroth at the moment, but I'm really looking forward to taking a listen once they are available. As for go-to music, it really depends. Like I'm actually very structured as to like the things that I listen to. Like on Fridays when I leave town, I listen to a certain track by Bo Burnham. I forgot the name of the track. Oh goodness. You know what? I'm gonna look it up. There we go. Bo Burnham. He's a comedian, actually. He's a singing comedian person. Does some really weird stuff, but there's this one track called "Can't Handle This," and for some reason I always listen. It's like a ritual. I always listen to it as I skip town on Fridays as I drive up to see my in-laws. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm going to see my in-laws. It's just something that I play. When I work, especially when I'm writing, I tend to listen to piano music. There's a set on Spotify. It's called Peaceful Piano. That's like my go-to when when I just want to have some sort of noise in the background. Usually I don't like letting myself get distracted by stuff. And when I'm playing, same thing. I'm actually just playing the piano stuff, which I know is like really boring. But then when I just want to kind of tune stuff out, I'm cool with that. But as for other music, I'll typically listen to like throwback stuff. I'm a 90s guy, so I'll listen to like 90s hip hop. If you guys listen to my streams over on Twitch, more often than not, you'll hear me drop some sort of 90s hip hop artist of some sort. You'll hear one of many different things, as well as whatever the heck people request for me over on Twitch. But that's, yeah, it would be any of those things with my music, as well as the Hamilton soundtrack. Oh my god, I'll listen to the Hamilton soundtrack like all day. These days, that's almost like ambient music that I just kind of let run in the background too. Clayton Alexander says, all right, here's my question. Who actually is Bob? And could he be an old god whispering in our ears through your content? You know, with regards to the old gods, I know that it's almost kind of a joke, a trope that, hey, if we don't know what, if there's something mysterious going on, if there's mysterious behavior going on, it's got to be the old gods that are behind it. Not Bob, though. Bob stands on his own. Bob is Bob. I don't think he whispers in our ears. I think he kind of outright speaks to your mind. Okay, that's kind of the same thing, but you know what I mean, right? Okay, so that ends part 2 of the Q&A. Part 3 is going to be coming very shortly. So thanks once again for watching. I hope you had a good time. And if you did have any other questions that you wanted to ask me for fun, or if you just want to get some opinions, you want to get my opinions on certain things, feel free to share that in the comment below. Hopefully I won't get too many, or at the very least I'll be able to answer them fast enough that I won't overwhelm us with so many questions and answers and such. So I'll see you guys for the next one. Please like and subscribe to help support the channel. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, so stay safe, stay happy, and as always, stay breezy.